So goalkeepers in FC26 have had a massive improvement, and most definitely there is a long list of solid keepers you can get for your starter team, for your endgame team, and everything in between. So today we are looking at pretty much most of the best goalkeepers that you've seen so far, and naturally the icons are always going to be a bit of an interesting one because naturally they're going to be slightly better than some of the kind of mid keepers at the moment, but even then, some of the top goalkeepers are just incredible. We've seen this for many years, that the likes of Alisson, Courtois, even Raya at this point now, Donnarumma, are going to be just as good as some of the icons. Probably until Team of the Year when we eventually get that, and naturally as we get evolutions in keepers now, we can actually add it onto the list. So if we were starting with one of the keepers that is very interesting this year because of the transfer, that boy is Ederson. Now, obviously with Ederson, he has moved away from the Prem, and to be honest, he's definitely took a bit of a downgrade. Now, naturally, we can't get him in the Man City. He's not actually been in there at all, so we will only be able to get him for Fenerbahce. Now, just because he's changed out of the Prem, does that mean he is totally out of the question? And to be honest, no. I do think he's going to be a solid keeper still. I don't think he'll reach the heights of if he was at Man City, and to be honest, he was always the second behind Alisson, especially because you don't even get to utilise the fact that he's Brazilian, because Alisson is as well. So naturally, it was always a debate on who you prefer, but Alisson normally comes out on top. We did have a brand new keeper as well from the Cornerstones, which is going to be Guzan. Another fantastic upgrade of a keeper. I don't think he's necessarily terrible. Let's zoom in a little bit. And naturally, he's going to be just a standard keeper. Like, yes, you could possibly go with the Evo, and naturally, I could do that with most of the keepers. But I will go on a miss, unfortunately, for him right now. I think maybe if you're building an MLS team, and naturally, these keepers are going to have more use because when we do get the gauntlet, which I believe is going to be today if you're watching this on Monday, we will have a gauntlet which allows people, or makes people should I say, utilize 3 different teams, meaning you're going to need at least 3 goalkeepers, if not further if we eventually get into the gauntlet where they do like 10 different teams, which I think could actually be quite interesting for the casual player more than the top meta sort of player, because naturally you're not going to keep in your club a Van der Sar, Buffon and Yashin or Kahn like that. That's just so much value at this point in the game to have all of them, so you're going to need a couple of these low budget keepers. So then if we move on to one of my personal favourites, he's been incredible throughout the years, and David De Gea is now back in business. He is an 85 Fiorentina, and he most definitely is doing pretty well. Now, obviously, I will prefer a higher rated version of De Gea, and naturally we saw during the team of the season and kind of towards the end game, he was very decent, and I think this year he again is a keeper that does do pretty well, and keepers along the kind of board have got so much better. Now, there's obviously still ways you pass around them, you find specific shots that do well, you're going to be able to beat them a lot of the time, but most definitely they have improved massively against that mid sort of tier. Top sort of meta pro players, naturally they're going to find ways, but for me, I think De Gea goes most definitely into that very usable. Now, there's going to be a lot of people in that very usable at the moment, because naturally we're at the start of the game. There's a lot of keepers that I could throw in a Donnarumma into the top meta. You could go Courtois, Cech, Casillas, Campos. Not really. But naturally, you're going to find a lot of these keepers that will fit that early end sort of top level, really. And I think the new Liverpool keeper, or I'd say new Liverpool keeper, kind of the bench keeper in Mamadashvili. So if you're looking for coins, head over to eldorado.gg. There is huge amounts of verified sellers on Eldorado, and there is a money back guaranteed by TradeShield. If that's not enough, there is 24/7 live support and also plenty of reviews across websites that will definitely put your mind at ease. And as always, before you check out, make sure that you are using the code JT11 for 5% off every single order. Back to the video. Vili, I want to say I pronounce his name. I'm not budging it too much, but he is again coming in pretty decent. 15k in fact. I was going to say 11.5. Naturally, he's going to come in as the 84. He will be the backup to Alisson, and the interesting part with where evolutions go is not going to be right now. They're really slowing down that curve with evolutions, which I think is absolutely fine. I know a lot of people are kind of hit and miss with just +1 on passing, but that was the kind of problem with evolutions, if you remember, especially at the start of the game, having 1584 evolutions, then 1586, 88. It just became a pattern of, I don't really want to do any of them. At least now you can kind of just slowly build someone, and you can build across the board. Goalkeepers, we've seen one evolution, I think, so far, and naturally it's not been anything crazy, but it could mean a start for this 84, because not every goalkeeper is going to get their time in the sun. They're going to be missed out. We've seen many icon keepers not get a single upgrade until literally footies. So now at least you could potentially evolution them or evo them slightly before that. One of the keepers that obviously doesn't have a market value and is specifically talking to the fact if you did manage to get yourselves a debut Kahn, I think that is absolutely brilliant. I unfortunately got Jones, centre back, right nation, but unfortunately not Kahn. This is going to be a great starter keeper for anybody. Like, this basically sorts out your goalkeeper quite some time, because not only do you get the 86 right now, solid keeper in himself, and naturally we won't put him up to the 91 yet because you've got a couple of months to go, but you will get the 91 as they upgrade, which I think is going to be incredible for anybody that did manage to get him. It sorts out a German team, it sorts out a goalkeeper for a considerable amount of time, so I'd go very usable for right now, and most definitely puts him into a top meta when he gets to that 91 comfortably. And then we've got a few others that we can obviously throw in. We've got Neuer coming in as another German keeper as the kind of more low end of this now. He's slowly coming down in rating, which is, it just is what it is. And unfortunately, he will be there for a bit. Whether we see a flashback, a moments of him, which I can imagine in the future we might do. But again, another evolution premise could be on the horizon for him. I would say for me right now, I'd be looking unusable. Naturally, 84s and 86s, judging from the Evo structure at the moment, are not going to be in any position to go into an Evo yet. They look like they're starting with like 80s and 82s, and more than likely will take a while to get to the 83 4s, which I'm absolutely on board with. I think this game has got a solid premise, a solid start to it. If it does continue this slower curve, I think it will last a lot longer, which I'm very, very happy about in terms of being able to actually utilize some of these players. Unfortunately, Endler will go into the kind of bottom category. Again, height for me will be a massive factor on her, and also Campos, and naturally then we look at a few more of the heroes. We've got Dudek, and hopefully they haven't forgotten this year a bit of Tim Howard. Now obviously Dudek, Rush Out, Playstyle Plus, I think is phenomenal. 70,000 coins, relatively cheap to get a keeper in there that could do the business and carry on for quite some time. I personally would go again into the very usable sort of standpoint with him, and I do think Howard would be very similar. We've got the Far Throw, I want to say. A couple of playstyles, they've definitely dropped down on how many playstyles everybody has, even in the, I don't know if you'd call them, I just call them playstyles, but I think people call them silver and gold. I mean, it's a good differentiate, but I mean, they have dropped down massively on how many they have to start with. And then that's going to be potentially where the Evos do come in. You just add a single playstyle to them, and you can kind of create your perfect player, which I'm absolutely on board with. Tim Howard, though, I would go over Dudek in my opinion. I think 99,000 coins. He's obviously coming in for the Prem as well, which is going to give him a slight bit of Prem tax, but obviously Dudek does have that tax as well. We then have Rulli, a brand new Team of the Week keeper. Again, nothing too crazy with him. I think he's solid in kind of what you've got for a very starter brand, but he's going to be very much like Guzan. He's just standard. Like, he might get a little bit of game time being in a slightly more major league, but I don't think he's going to go too crazy. I think he'll be usable, then potentially Evo, and then eventually you just miss out on him. But again, it goes down to the fact of, what does the gauntlet actually bring? Are the rewards fantastic? Are they going to be well worth diversifying your teams, your squads into 3 mega teams, or just 3 solid teams, and you kind of see what rewards you get? So that will be interesting. Nobody really knows too much about it yet. We just know that you do need, obviously, a lot of different teams. Now, throwing in one of the best keepers in the game by a landslide, if you've played against him, if you've used him, Donnarumma is outrageous. You thought the PSG version of him, they have Prem taxed him, they have gave him everything. He is phenomenal. He's a very, very good keeper in the game. He's 6'5". He's always been a solid keeper, and to be honest, you could do the same easily with Courtois and also Alisson. This is the year for them, in my opinion. I do think Courtois will still come in as a fan favourite for me, but Donnarumma now moving into the Prem really makes it a lot easier because I don't always run with a PSG team, especially when you had the likes of Messi in there, Mbappe, obviously Neymar as well. I just couldn't afford them sort of players, so Donnarumma almost just fell to the bottom of the pile, whereas now you've got loads of Prem options. Courtois will obviously again be La Liga's favourite. Vinny, you've just got loads. Bellingham, pretty much the whole Real Madrid team, throw in a few of the Barca boys as well. Obviously Yamal, Rafinha with a phenomenal year this year. It's going to be a very interesting one to see who really comes out on top, because I think they'll be as good as each other in my opinion. Which then we've got a few of the lower rateds. Obviously Pope coming in. I think he's usable. He most definitely is getting into kind of more your Evo sort of style. He's going to be one of the first ones that throws himself in. And I do think Vicario will be another one. They're cheap. They're affordable. They are very starter-based keepers that you've probably packed as well. And what I like to do at the start of the game, especially with a lot of the objectives, you've got a lot of the goals, assists, but you've also got a first owner one as well. I think I don't know if it's win, but I'm pretty sure it's play 100 matches with a full 11 starter team. I don't know if it is bench actually, but 11 players that you've pack pulled, you've managed to get from SBCs, packs in general, and I do think these are going to be two of the ones that a lot of people do have. Not everybody's managed to pack the crazy keepers yet, but these are going to be solid options that you can start your career on. I'm not going to say these are going to be players that you'll inevitably keep for a month, 2 months. They're going to be very much the right now, get through the business end, get the 100 games done, and jobs are good, and you don't need to worry about having an extra keeper. Same kind of with Pickford. I think he'll be another one that you kind of throw in as the kind of last resort there. He's not necessarily going to be too expensive, but he, again, like Pope, holds in that great value of a full English team, which is the ability to get yourselves a Bobby Morph with 100 matches played, or I think it's 100 match. I think it's X amount of wins, I want to say, and then X amount of matches played. So he's going to be another one that you can throw in as one of the better England keepers that you can find. There's not going to be too much after that, so you've got slim pickings to start with that English full 11. Then if we kind of go across the league, we've obviously got Golaski, we've got Martinez, Szczesny, all around that same sort of level. If we kind of take Szczesny as an example, because you've got two very decent keepers across the board in Barcelona. You've obviously got ter Stegen and you've also got Szczesny. Now Szczesny is obviously going to come as the more cheaper one, and I do think ter Stegen will be just that slightly bit better, but not necessarily too crazy, as obviously the Playstyle Pluses will add a massive factor going into this. Then if we go across the kind of teams and look at another Madrid in our boy Oblak, 9,500, he's got himself the cross claimer, which again is a nice playstyle plus. Far throw and far reach as obviously the other playstyles. Rush out is definitely one of my more favoured, but the fact that now between the sticks they are more... They're better at the 1v1s. They definitely don't let in as consistent, like the finesses outside the box are not too crazy. I'd still put him in the very usable. I wouldn't necessarily go too high up on the board. And then we finish off the final one in the Spanish League in obviously our boy Unai Simon, coming in as an 85, 5.5. Pretty standard across the board. I wouldn't necessarily go too crazy with him either. I'd then do the same for Golaski. I'd put him as the kind of usable sort of side. And Martinez is an interesting one because he's always been such an up and down. Like there's moments where I'm thinking, very usable is decent standpoint, but then I'm like, realistically, I'd probably choose a few other keepers over him. 6'5" still, which I still don't believe. Like, it doesn't look 6'5". I would give him the benefit of the doubt on this very first ranking to go into that very usable, but I do think after a couple of weeks, he's got to be dropped down to that usable pretty pronto. Raya, one of the better keepers that we've had in recent times, another breakthrough star in terms of the Premier League keepers. We've had very few. It's normally Ederson, Alisson, then obviously Martinez in the middle. You'd then have it kind of like your Pickfords, your Popes as your lowers. It's been a while since we've seen another keeper break through that 86-87 barrier, and I think it is well deserves in him. He's most definitely a better keeper that you can find. I do think he will unfortunately be a second pick, or at least even a third pick to Alisson and Donnarumma, but he definitely would start off pretty well in this kind of industry, really. We then have two giants in the Serie A. We have Sommer, we have Mignan, two very solid keepers that will throw punches between them. Now, obviously, Mignan is going to be a more favoured shout. French nation links, plenty of French players in the Serie A as well. Compared to Switzerland, he's going to have that kind of extra ability from him. So, unfortunately, I would say Mignan's going to be better, but Sommer's still definitely no debate to kind of go against the best of them. Now, in terms of icon keepers, I am just going to be consistent. I don't particularly like the German keeper. Just too small, in my opinion. Compared to the rest, there's just no kind of entry there, really. And then if we was to look at kind of icon goalkeepers in the masses, again, it's going to be very difficult to kind of branch them out. I do think Van der Sar will always be a personal favourite, and obviously a lot of pricing will be involved with these. You're not necessarily going to choose a 725k keeper over 100k Donnarumma. There's just no maths in that. Unless you pack them untradeable, you just will sell them. Like, you have to. The value of them is not worth just buying. You could literally go and buy your free gauntlet keepers in Courtois, Donnarumma and Alisson for even one of the cheapest on the market right now. Now, does that mean they are the best? And I think it all goes down to what you personally prefer. But I think if I was being a brand new starter in this game, I don't think a icon goalkeeper could be just very usable. I think they will be some of the best. They will most definitely drop very quickly, but most definitely they will be up there. Kahn is definitely kind of proven into the newer sort of icon kind of virality of him. The price of him is purely the fact that he is brand new into the game. That is going to be the reason why he's mega priced over the rest of them. We saw the same with the likes of Buffon last year, and again he follows that same sort of pattern. But I do think for me, this would be where I was at the moment. Evos will come once we start to see how they start evoing goalkeepers, the frequency of when they actually release them, and if anybody in this sort of list will fit them right now. But that will come. Let me know down below your goalkeeper right now. Have you got free setup ready for the gauntlet tonight? Let me know down below, and I'll catch you all for that next one. Peace.